We are ready.
Ready to go. All right, well, thank you all for joining the Tuesday, May 21st, 2024 meeting of the Planning and Parks Committee. And to start off, since this is the first meeting of a new session post-election, and we technically do not have a sitting chair of the committee. I was the previous chair of the last session, so in an effort to expedite the process of electing a new chair, I would entertain a motion by somebody to allow me to preside over the election process if it works. Got a motion from Councilmember Ottenberg, seconded by Councilmember Godwell. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. So in that case, then I will move forward with the process and since there is no acting chair, anybody can make a nomination and second for Councilmember Rambo.
I would like to renominate Chair Galani. He has been a wonderful chair and I expect him to, or hope he can continue that.
Thank you very much, sir. Councilmember Dodwell,
Second.
second. Okay, do we have any other nominations? Okay, seeing none, I will close the nominations. And then the last thing that we need to agree on is the pattern of voting. There's two options that we have. The way we did it last night in economic development was where we did a roll call vote and upon your name being called, you just declared who it is that you would like to vote. Shouldn't be too difficult, but Ms. Ribito, would you like to proceed with the roll call vote, please?
Absolutely. Chair Galani.
Start with me, huh? I'll vote for myself.
Is that a tough decision?
Been thinking about it all week.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Galani.
Councilmember Preston.
Councilmember Galani.
Councilmember Ottenberg.
Mike Galani.
Council member Rambo
Mike Galani.
and Councilmember Crayons.
Councilmember Galani.
All right.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the kind words, Councilmember Rambo. All right, so once again, I'll welcome everybody to the meeting tonight. And then I guess we need to do a roll call vote for the
Yes.
start of the new meeting. So
Sure.
let's go ahead and go with that.
Okay. Councilmember Dodwell.
Present.
Chair Galani.
Here,
Councilmember Preston.
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg.
Here.
Councilmember Rambo.
Here.
Councilmember Crayons.
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon. Councilmember Mabry. All right, and we have a quorum. You absent?
got everybody? Okay.
So,
Thank you very much. That'll move us to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the committee's meeting of Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. And I know we have some new folks on the committee that weren't here, part of this committee on the last session, but you're free to vote to approve the minutes regardless. You have to be present at that meeting, but it's also, we need 5.
A majority of the attendees.
Majority of attendees, which would be 4. So we need 4 people to approve it. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes? Councilmember Ottenberg,
Motion to approve the minutes.
second by Councilmember Dodrell. We'll do this by voice vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Minutes are approved. And next, that brings us to public participation.
we have 2 cards here.
Oh, okay. Well, we've got 2 folks that would like to speak tonight, and so what I'll do is I'll just call the name, and if you'd like to, oh, we got another one, 3. Excellent. Okay. Whatever's more comfortable, you can stay where you're at, or if you'd like to come to the front, whatever more comfortable for you. So the program is that you've got up to 5 minutes to speak, and I won't go through all the other details regarding it because I don't know. So we've got Tracy Henson as the first speaker.
Hi, everyone, here again. We had a month off of meetings on this, so that was kind of nice. But Tracy Hinson, I'm a Questover Canyon neighbor, here to talk about the research and development greenhouse possibility. So first off, if you're unfamiliar with it, one of the main concerns is that we're all on private wells. So of course, any contamination could be a real concern for us, and other communities have had to move when things like this have gone awry in their neighborhoods. Two, any sort of development along especially Highway T on the side that's closer to the road between that and Wild Horse Creek poses an especial risk to erosion concerns. If you were to build up concrete, that's going to enhance runoff. It actually could also push flooding back into the community, something I followed in University City for 5 on your side. Multiple different developments there have pushed their flooding concerns into communities that have never seen flooding before. We certainly wouldn't want to cause that. Three, another concern, which is more on like the paperwork side of things, but if you were to allow an LLC to come into an area to do research and development, they could, contaminate the aquifer, cause erosion issues, and then declare bankruptcy. It'd be all hands off. They would not have any. It would then be the EPA's problem, and the EPA has no money for fixing erosion or any issues, as we all know. Otherwise, Bridgeton would be all fixed up. Bridgeton's still fighting for that. That's years of things. And then finally, my last one is kind of an uplifting one, because just recently we had a great geomagnetic storm and we got to see the Aurora Borealis right here in Wildwood. Now, I had friends who were trying to see it in Creve Coeur, Kirkwood, and St. Charles, who were texting me feverishly which direction in the sky to look, but their communities had too much light for them to actually see it. So they drove about 30 minutes to us here in Wildwood, and they were able to see that geomagnetic northern lights storm. It was magnificent here, especially on your phones too, like the way it illuminated things. I was really proud that Wildwood could be that spot for them to see a nice night sky. And had Solis not have been actually stopped in what they were doing up until about February, March, they were still operating lights until about 10 to 11 o'clock at night. So had my friends or even myself have tried to look up to see the northern lights at 9:30 to 10, we would have just seen lights from Solis. So I hope that in anything going forward, parks and planning, anything with the city, we can try to put forward a dark sky initiative, because that makes such a difference for things. I treasure Wildwood as being suburban rural, because we're suburban enough to have Starbucks, 5-10 minutes away, but rural enough to have dark sky to enjoy magnificent stargazing and every now and then the northern lights.
Thank you very much. Next on the speaker cards, I have David Knoll.
My name is David Knoll. I'm also in Questover Canyon. Addressed this group a number of times already. I haven't seen a draft of what would be proposed for the R&D agricultural. I'm not even sure what it technically would be called. Whatever the document is that they would be held to. And I would just like to see that once there is a draft of that we get a chance to review it. Personally, I would like to see that no agricultural R&D facility be put in within a mile of any residence. That would help alleviate a lot of the issues having to do with well contamination, traffic, noise, all of that sort of thing. So if it's at least a mile, other people may have other ideas, but that'd be a good place to start. I'd like to see it a mile away. Also, I'd like to see the zoning regulations for the outdoor lighting included. Section 415-450 of the Wildwood City lighting requirements addresses what would be the lighting pollution that Tracy was just alluding to on that. And so I would also like to see that included. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And last on our speaker cards, I have Jim Gerler.
Close. I got bad handwriting. That's Tim.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not a good reader though.
I think all three of us here were for the same purpose here with that research and development activity in non-urban residential areas. I'm gonna take maybe a little bit different approach. I'm sure that the council has heard many different reasons why some of the issues that popped up with Solis weren't desirable with where they were. But something that I would encourage the entire council to continue to remember is that for planning and zoning, really, that is there to help protect all of the citizenship here in Wildwood. And so while this issue has become much more poignant with Solis here, and especially in all of our backyards, I think the broader scope of this issue is one that can stretch across the entire city. It's really trying to understand where should commercial and manufacturing operations reside and where shouldn't they? And I would be a strong proponent that would say in non-urban locations, that isn't the place, that isn't the best place, that isn't even a desirable place for those operations to be present. There's a reason why we have the zoning ordinances that we already do to protect us from circumstances just like this. So anytime that we have a very specific purpose-driven need or opportunity to maybe make a change, that always throws up flags and question marks, which is exactly what I think we've been experiencing here with Solis, is that they're now trying to redefine what is research and development, what is non-urban, what can operate there, what can't operate there. And so while we might need a definition for the city, if we're in void of that currently, I don't know that crafting a definition to oblige their business operations is really the path to go down. I think there's a reason why commercial and manufacturing is located in the valley. It's away from homes. It's away from all the concerns that my neighbors have expressed and that others have expressed in the past. And I think if we continue to uphold the rationale and the reasoning behind the zoning that we've had in the past, it will continue to protect the citizens here, and we can all continue to enjoy what has brought us mostly to Wildwood. And I think quite a bit of that's privacy, space, opportunity to enjoy nature without an encumbrance of manufacturing, whether it's light pollution, chemical pollution or others, noise pollution, traffic pollution, all those things go into that, that can present themselves in commercial areas. There's a reason why City Town Center is where it is, right? It's not out in a residential area, it's here in the heart of the city. So for all those reasons, I would just encourage the council and the board to consider that as they go through that process, please. So, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your input, and thank you everybody for showing up and participating. We always welcome and encourage residents to come in and give us their opinions on everything. So thank you very much. And that would take us to the next under action items. We're gonna go right into,
There.
oh, I'm sorry.
If anybody is joining us via Zoom that would like to make any comments, please use the raise hand feature and we'll promote you to a panelist. Can't see it. Thank you.
I was preemptive.
I didn't fill out a card, but I will in a second. Can I say something real quick too?
Sure. Can you
Feel like
get her a card?
Mhm.
We just have to have a
I'll
card
let
for
her,
the
Um,
record, but
so-
go ahead.
just sitting here and listening to everybody else, and one thing I've noticed is everybody here has things to say about why this is wrong, why this is negative, why it impacts us. Who's here speaking for it? Where's that party? Why isn't anybody else here saying why we should do this? Doesn't that speak volumes that nobody here is actually pushing for this? You know, we're here for personal reasons, obviously. We've been fighting this since I was 10 months pregnant. So this is a really personal matter for us and all of our neighbors. It's not even, you know, a worth their time for the opposing party, which everybody knows is Solis at this point, or anybody else that wants to come in to be here and waste their time doing this too. So just take that into consideration with everything else. So,
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, so that closes the public participation portion of the meeting. We'll go into action items. First under act, Councilmember Dodwell.
Might I request that we move the agricultural research and development item from number 2 to number 1?
Yes.
Since that seems to be of
Would you like to
import,
make a motion? to
I'll
do-
make that
We
motion.
got a motion for that. We got a second, Councilmember Ottenberg. That is to move the item number 2 under research and development under action items for planning matters up to number 1 from number 2. So we can accommodate everybody that's here and they don't have to wait. So any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? All right, that takes us to item number 2 under research and development activities. Director Rudish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, the department has prepared for your consideration tonight a memorandum that kind of goes over the history associated with the requested change to the non-urban resident district and adding a new conditional use permit, and to a certain degree, the proposal that was in tandem with it, which was from Solus AgriSciences. The first part of the memorandum kind of goes through the history of the process, when it started with the Planning and Zoning Commission, the hearings, discussion of the change to the non-urban resident district, the conditional use permit, and ultimately what the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended, which was a denial to the change to the non-urban resident district, which meant the conditional use permit could not even be considered because there was nothing in that list of conditional uses that would accommodate that type of use. Finally, as part of that background, the department then identified that the report was received and filed by the city council, and a request was made to forward it to the committee for further study. Tonight is the first step in that further study. The second part of the memorandum, for the most part, tries to understand what Solus AgriScience was proposing to do in the non-urban resident district if a conditional use permit were granted, and why the Planning and Zoning Commission, and for almost in all instances, the residents that participated in the process did not support it. And so the department identified 6 items. And I think consistently, those are the items we heard from the Planning and Zoning Commission members and the public. And those were the previous land use history. In this instance, with Solus AgriScience, it was Farr Greenhouse. Farr Greenhouse had been there since approximately 1950. So had a long, long history of being a community kind of landmark. And also one that I think a lot of people just really appreciated because of its kind of wholesomeness, country-like condition, et cetera. Obviously, Solus AgriScience was something different. The type of street and access. We also heard just about the fact that it was on State Highway T. Speeds on State Highway T are high in some instances, and then just the safety of accessing into and out of the site. Tonight you heard, I think the next 2, the water source, obviously Solus AgriScience, like Farr Greenhouse, were dependent on wells, not public system, as well as for wastewater treatment. They were on their own system, not the public system managed by the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District. The last 2 items also were key in the commission's decision, and that was the surrounding development pattern. Other than the transmission line easement, the towers associated with Ameren, Missouri, and the true agricultural use of many of the properties to the east of the Farr Greenhouse site, Solus AgriScience, it is primarily large lot, single family residences at a very low density. And then finally, the lighting and sound. And again, a lot of time was spent by the commission going over our outdoor lighting requirements and our noise code. But certainly there was a feeling that enforcement could be a problem in the future. Again, not being able to be there all the time, particularly late at night, if the lights were used in the greenhouses to foster growth and to accommodate the efforts of Solus AgriScience. After going through that list of 6, the department identified those 6 items, plus the issues that had been identified. For the most part, then basically said, what would be the conditions necessary to allow for a potential change to the non-urban resident district and the ultimate granting of a conditional use permit to any entity, not necessarily Solus AgriScience. And for the most part, the department said, obviously, changing agricultural or some type of vacant property, a greenfield site, into something of an agricultural research and development land use didn't seem to be appropriate. So the department's first statement relative to previous land use history was no greenfield. So for all intents and purposes, when the department makes that statement, we're saying Farr Greenhouse may have been the poster child for this. And obviously the Planning and Zoning Commission didn't think it was appropriate. And many of the residents, not only in close proximity, but in the general vicinity. type of street and access, we talked about an arterial public street, those that can accommodate a commercial or non-residential type of use. And again, although Solus Agriscience intended to use the FAR greenhouse facility, they were making changes both interior to the greenhouse areas as well as the grounds itself. So public streets, principally though, in the case of the department's recommendation, arterial types. And for the most part, we identified State Route 100, State Route 109, and Manchester Road as likely candidates. We thought public water was essential, as well as public sewer and surrounding development. Again, it'd have to be in an area where we felt if there was agriculture, it'd at least be a link or a connection. And then also, for the most part, there'd be some non-residential character to the components. And then finally, we talked about compliance to our lighting, outdoor lighting requirements and noise code. So when the department started layering them over each other, realization came to the department is that by the time you go through all of those components, there's really not many sites that would be eligible for a new conditional use permit in a non-urban resident district for research development activities in an agricultural setting. So the question the department poses to the committee tonight is, if there is such a small limited number of sites that would be applicable or even possible for consideration, we really want the non-urban resident district to accommodate. The department has a feeling that maybe if Solus Agriscience didn't work on the FAR greenhouse site, there's probably not going to be another site that lends itself any better, and in most instances, probably worse. And so the department is asking you, do you want to proceed forward? Because in its opinion, it's probably not something that needs to be done.
Thank you, Director Budich. Real quick, just to summarize that or get confirmation of I think is the situation. So the Solus project on the FAR site is, yeah, like that's gone, that's done. We're not discussing that or looking to resurrect that. So that's officially not gonna happen.
There's
And
no
then-
allowance in the non-urban resident district for a conditional use permit. They need a conditional use permit. They can't get one. And on their own fruition, they closed, I think, around March of this year.
And so the question that council has posed back to the committee is not regarding Solus or anything to do with that. That thing's done and put to bed. It's a matter of whether we think there's a need to update the non-urban residential district to accommodate potential other sites in the future or not.
That's it exactly, sir.
Okay, just want to make sure we had that lined up. Councilmember Rambo?
We can address this if it comes around again in another form, if some other company wants to do something and they have a reasonable proposal, we can still work through the process without any additions to the current code, right?
That's correct. There's always the opportunity for the council, city council, to initiate a study by the Planning and Zoning Commission if something comes along that seems, let's say, more appropriate than what we just saw. Or a key component of the department's recommendation in this regard is the fact that we have probably 500+ acres in the wildwood portion of the Chesterfield Valley that could accommodate it right now. So if another entity were to come and say, we're starting at ground zero, we don't have a FAR greenhouse situation, I would encourage them to look at in the portion of the Chesterfield Valley, which is industrially zoned, has agricultural activity still as the primary use on our portion of it. And our pattern has been to approve more agricultural use, that being the expansion of fixed supply services and now.
So the
Great. So I had another comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
We identified lots of complaints, some of the same that you folks made. I would ask you if you see anything, legislation pending before the council concerning night sky compliance, you come speak in support of that, because we don't have a lot of support. There's a lot more people saying, oh, it's just, that's the way it is. You gotta have lights and we want all these giant lights everywhere and so on and so forth. And I mean, I like the Milky Way myself, and so I'm asking if you guys support that idea, please pay attention and come. And other than that, I would actually make the motion that we just accept your recommendation.
That's what I was gonna ask for next. You got a second? Okay, so the motion on the floor is to leave this as it's already been decided by planning and zoning recommendation. And then send this back to council with our recommendation that we don't make any changes or adjustments and leave the non-urban residential district as it is. Councilmember Krantz?
So we want to move this in industrial zoning?
But what the department would respond is that I think it could be done in the industrial district with just a minor modification to the existing site-specific ordinance that governs it. So there's an opportunity. We're not turning our back on R&D for agriculture. What we're saying is there's better location, a location that's almost pre-zoned to accommodate it.
So non-urban CUPs, would you go for another greenhouse in non-urban, or do you want to continue with the CUP there?
Our greenhouse predates almost all of the zoning of St. Louis County. The first real comprehensive zoning ordinance for unincorporated St. Louis County was 1948. So they were around just that time.
Okay.
And the minimum lot size back then was an acre. What I will tell you is that in the non-urban resident district, we do allow plant nurseries with associated greenhouses. But they're for the purposes of what you would normally think of, and that's like growing poinsettias, is the Mr. and Mrs.
So that's where you give your CUPs and, okay, all right.
There's the protection there with the conditional use permit process.
Because I wouldn't want to invite anybody out there, different kind of CUP, for something other than a greenhouse. Okay, landscape.
Okay, so we've got the motion on the floor and a second to, Councilmember John, would you have a question?
No, it got answered.
So the motion on the floor with the second is to leave this issue as it's already been decided. We're making adjustments to the non-urban residence district to accommodate any future activities. The FAR location at Solis is officially put to bed, not gonna happen, and we'll entertain any future situations as they come up. And as Director Vivich mentioned, refer them to the industrial areas in the valley that might be pursued. So with that being said, any further discussion on this matter? Okay, so we'll take a voice vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions.
I didn't-
Motion carries. Okay, Councilmember Dodwell?
Is this information gonna go back to the city council at our next meeting so that we publicly speak the same thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just wanted to
But the
make sure
council doesn't have to take any action on it, correct?
It'll be
in our work.
It's already
Information.
decided.
under for action because it was a referral, so
We gotta take it back to
Kind of
council
ties
to
of
finally
knot.
tie the knot.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you all very much for coming and
Are
speaking.
you all understanding what we just did?
Yeah.
It's dead then?
It's dead.
Okay.
It's dead. I spoke to the CEO and Mr. Vunich probably did as well, but he said that they made a mistake even buying it because it was so decrepit. And, Billy Bob's wiring out there with naked, wire and it just, they could not use the greenhouses that they had and they've decided to just write it off. So, I don't know what.
Same guy called and yelled at me and didn't know he had an LLC and didn't know he had a permit. He didn't know that he didn't have a business permit either.
So they may try to do something, sell the site somehow, but there's gonna be some cleanup involved, I would say.
My understanding was it wasn't grandfathered in as a commercial property.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't, is that
So
true?
why don't we just say it can't be a commercial property anymore? And that's the end of that.
I think we just did.
Well, yeah, we did.
As far as Farr selling to even another greenhouse, because we might not be so lucky to get someone like Mr. Farr who is very conscious about using any chemicals and that sort of thing. We may just get a guy who says, fertilize everything, kill all the bugs,
Director Vivich, this might be something that would be brought up in planning and zoning to discuss on the agenda.
Mr. Chair, we have a set of regulations governing non-conforming uses, lands and structures. And there's an abandonment clause. And since Solus Agriscience never was legal in their operation, that can't So when basically what we're doing now is saying that from approximately December of 2023, when the greenhouse component closed, they're on an abandonment timeline now, and once the abandonment is reached, then it's just, you don't have that grandfathering protection anymore.
Okay.
I
Well-
can't remember off the top of my head if it's 6 months or 12 months, but I'll figure it out and let you all know at the June meeting.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Well, that puts it to bed for now, and anything that comes up in the future we'll address as necessary. So thank you again, everybody, for your participation, and
Thank you guys very much.
that will take us to back to item number 1 on the agenda, which is the reoccupancy permit program development for rental properties. So we've got Ms. Ripito.
I'll give everyone a minute.
Yeah. We'll give everybody a minute to
Yeah.
get out.
She's.
Couple.
Thanks for moving the agenda up for us.
Yeah, no problem.
No problem.
I'll bring my astronomers.
All right.
Sorry, guys.
No, you're good.
All
All right. Ms. Rivito is going to talk to us about the reoccupancy permit.
Right, well, thank you guys for coming, and thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to welcome our new members, and for the sake of our new members that haven't sat through this conversation a million times, I'm going to provide a bit more details. So for those of you that have suffered through it many, many times, I apologize in advance. However, so the research on a potential occupancy inspection program started last summer at the direction of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And the commission did not endorse a reoccupancy program for existing single-family dwellings upon the sale of a home. However, due to concerns of, they didn't approve it due to concerns of repetition of inspection services, costs associated, and because the current status of most of the homes in the city of Wildwood were in pretty good condition. They did, however, recognize that in today's housing market, there's been an overall increase in rental property in single-family homes, and that some of our multifamily complexes weren't in excellent shape. And so therefore, they did see an importance in having inspections performed on properties that had change of owner occupant without the sale of a home, so that weren't getting inspected in between different occupants. So accordingly, the Planning and Zoning Commission endorsed a reoccupancy program for rental property only. This was brought to City Council in August of 2023. They endorsed the recommendation on all rental non-owner occupied properties and referred this to Planning Parks to kind of iron out the details and implementation of the program. And that's where it's been since. We've had many discussions on it and worked through a lot of the kinks. And one of the primary things was that the Planning and Parks Committee did not feel like this legislation should move forward with this until there was an actual process, until the steps of the process were ironed out and better defined. And these steps were included in the report that you received in your packet. Several of them have been checked off, including the committee had an official from St. Louis County come to kind of give background on the inspection process and how it would be applied if the city of Wildwood contracted with St. Louis County to do inspections. And Kurt Juergens from the Public Works and Code Enforcement Division came in and answered all the questions. Also hold up to 2 community meetings. The first one was held on February 29th, and our second session was held earlier today, just before this meeting. And then review these comments and kind of determine accordingly if things should be changed, the process that we had, kind of ironed out thus far. And then develop a set of parameters, which was finished in January, which helped with answering all of the questions when it came to the public input sessions. And essentially, St. Louis County would be performing our inspections. People would pay for their inspections there. And then City of Wildwood would be issuing the actual occupancy permits. So people would bring their past inspections here, and then we would issue the occupancy permit itself to the residents, the tenant essentially. And then the next step would be completion of legislation. The legislation has been drafted. It was presented at a prior meeting, and it's with our city attorney now. And so we'll iron out all those details accordingly, and that can go on to city council for final approval. And then after that, it's just a matter of contacting St. Louis County and actually getting the process started, picking a date as to when it's going to start. However, given that that is so dependent upon city council approval, it kind of makes sense to pick the date at that point in time, or propose a date to city council. And then finally, just finalizing all the applications and updating the website and the permitting portal and all of that, and getting information out to the residents. As far as the public input sessions, the first one was held on February 29th, and it was in the council chambers and also via Zoom. And we only had about 10 attendees and I think 3 people on Zoom. The committee discussed the concerns from that in March. And most of the concerns regarding opposition of the requirement, the occupancy permit requirement could only be addressed by not implementing said program. And I don't think that's the objective. There were concerns regarding properties that don't meet building code or work done without a permit. And as far as that's concerned, work should be done should be done with a permit. That's actually, one of the city's regulations, and thus, it's not going to be a witch hunt to find work done without a permit. But I mean, it is a repercussion of doing things not the way that you're supposed to. So it might happen that comes up. There was an additional concern about additional costs associated with it. The cost for an inspection would just be up St. Louis County's normal fee. I think right now it's $95.50. And then we were talking about having a $50 permit fee through the city of Wildwood. And that would essentially cover our costs as far as data entry and keeping up with the program and such. That can be negotiable, but I don't think from the last meeting there was much interest in changing that. And then there were concerns regarding the 90 days allowed for between having a past inspection and getting a tenant in. And again, that's a pretty standard practice. It's standard with St. Louis County and many other municipalities, most other municipalities, as far as I saw in research. And 3 months is a long time, as far as even if a house is unoccupied, a lot can happen in 3 months. Or if you had a tenant in for 3 months, I mean, things can happen to a house within that time period. And so that is negotiable as far as being changed, but it's pretty standard practice everywhere. So that being said, although there weren't a whole lot of people in attendance, we did get a whole lot of phone calls. Most of them, people just wanted to know when it was being implemented and the process and such. And so the department discussed this with many, many phone calls. There wasn't an overall opposition to it from the majority of the people that we spoke with. It was more concerned about, do I need to get an occupancy permit right now? And is it going to be retroactive? Like if I have a tenant there, and all those questions were answered, and overall, we got pretty good feedback on it. And the city also met with Charlie Hinderleiter, the Senior Vice President of Government Affairs for St. Louis Realtors, and provided him additional information. And he gave us very positive feedback on how well thought out this process has been, as well as, our efforts to get this out to the residents and get feedback on it before actually implementing the program. And so now at this point, our second public input session this evening, we had one gentleman show up. And he was more concerned with, again, he has a tenant in his house in Wildwood, and he was more concerned with, does he need an occupancy inspection right now? And he was overall relieved, but yeah, we answered his questions regarding the process. And so that being said, the phone calls have also slowed down. We put up more information on the website that included like an FAQ, you know, it's got the FAQs that were handed out that basically run people through the process. And I think that a lot of people's questions have been answered. Our phone calls have slowed down. We had 3 at the time the staff report was written, and I've only gotten 2 since then, including the gentleman that came in today. And we had another phone call earlier today, but again, it was more concerns of, do I need to get this done right now than opposition to the program. So that being said, given where we're at with it, the next step in the process would be having legislation completed by our city attorney, get that back from our city attorney, and move it on to city council if that is the direction the committee is comfortable with. And if not, we are completely open to suggestions.
So you're, the action you're looking for from the committee is to send this to council with legislation to be prepared.
That would be the next step in the process. And then after that, it would be actually getting the process started. And so that concludes our presentation.
So we'll start out real quick. You have a question?
Melanie, thank you. I just got a couple of questions.
Sure.
Are there a lot of houses that are rented in Wildwood? Would you have an estimate?
I do, actually. So it's based on 2022 information. But that's the last data I could pull off of St. Louis County, and it's based off of their parcel data. And I just kind of pulled out the non-owner occupied properties and broke it down by single family homes, multifamily, and duplex. And as of 2022, we had 861 single family rentals, 304 multifamily, and 20 duplex townhouse units.
Okay. Are we gonna make money? Is this gonna generate revenue for the city?
Not so much. No, it's a program that's designed to break even. The $50 inspection fee will cover the cost of running the
Do
program.
they call the planning department and if they request a permit, they call Wildwood?
Yes, the permit would be through Wildwood. However, the inspections would go directly through St. Louis County, and they would just bring us proof of past inspection.
Last question.
Sure.
Most of the cities around here have that?
I actually had a map, but I seem to have lost my,
I mean, I think it's good. I like it.
where's my? Oh, there it is. Okay. So that was what I was attempting to do. Okay, so we created this map and those municipalities that have the name circled are municipalities that do have an occupancy program implemented currently. And so there are, you know, several around us that do and several that don't.
Was that just all of unincorporated St. Louis County does, or is that Jefferson County down there?
That's all of, so the actual areas that are highlighted in color as opposed to just the map, that's St. Louis County. And so it's actually not St. Louis County before that, or like
Got it.
to the south there. So yeah, that's unincorporated St. Louis County, and there were lots of other little spots of unincorporated that.
Awesome. Well, so we've been discussing this for obviously many months. And I know Councilmember Krantz and Councilmember Preston, this is your first exposure to this conversation. So what I would say is based on, do you have any questions, Councilmember Preston?
Just because I don't know if it's ever come up, and I don't even know if this is silly to even ask, but is this outside the scope of something like an Airbnb or a VRBO or something? Would that prevent people from operating those types of rentals of their homes, or?
That would actually be addressed under short-term rentals.
Okay, I
This
figured it
is-
might be different, but I just.
Yeah, this is for long-term rentals.
Okay.
So with that being said, at this point, I would say before we go any further, we can just, is there a motion on the floor to send this to council?
That's a good question
Yeah,
first.
go ahead.
So when?
When,
You said the biggest question you got was when, and I'm wondering when. I have a, this may be a useful example. A friend of mine, they got a pile of money and they decided they're gonna buy rental homes and give him something to do, actually. And so their first purchase, they closed yesterday, and it's on a condo there just northeast of Brightleaf. And they wanna buy more. And he's looking at a renter's agency to do the daily management. And I'm kind of wondering how we hook the people on the Wildwood inspection. If the rental agency, which may be downtown St. Louis, contacts the county to do the inspection, will the county folks know to maybe do both inspections at the same time, or to notify the city that there needs to be a city inspection? Cause I don't see a good mechanism to ensure that, you know, well-meaning people will get the city inspection when they've already called for a county inspection.
Well, the county, it's only one inspection. Like,
Okay,
it
yeah,
would just be
okay,
a St.
good.
Louis County inspection, and they just bring the proof of
come and
past
do it.
inspection to the city in order to actually fill out the occupancy permit. And the occupancy permit is generally filled out by the tenant. It basically shows the people that are living there and.
So it's locked down. The process is locked down.
Yes, and so we'll receive copies of the inspections from St. Louis County as well. And so if somebody gets an inspection and doesn't actually sign up for a permit, we can reach out to them. We know that this unit has been occupied and.
So in my friend's example, the management company will contact the county, and if Wildwood has incepted this program, it will automatically happen. And if not, if they get in under the wire, so to speak, then they won't have to have a city inspection until the next go.
If they have a tenant before the implementation date, and the implementation date that we were leaning towards, we keep telling people is probably late summer this year.
Okay.
And so we'll put a date on the city's website, and any, inspection or any occupant after such and such date will require an occupancy inspection.
Great, thank you, appreciate
So
it.
do you need us as part of the motion to send this to council if that's what we decide to do? Are you looking for us to attach to that go date, or is that something that council will discuss and come up with?
From the department's perspective, obviously Melanie is a key element of that. I'd like to wait on that. Mr. Young's had the proposed legislation for a bit, but Melanie, him and I have not had a real opportunity to kind of go through it. So I'm thinking, I think it'd be hard for us to have something at the June meeting. And so maybe July to have the report with recommendation, the legislation in August for introduction, and then maybe early fall. So I'd like to maybe let you make that decision once you have the legislation in hand, if the vote tonight is favorable.
Okay, so with that being said, do we have a motion to move this to council? We could still have discussion if we get a motion in a second. Motion, and we have a second?
Yeah.
Okay, so motion is to move this to city council for preparation of legislation to be discussed and voted upon there. And we have a second. So now with that being said, we're in discussion of said motion. Councilwoman Dodwell?
Is just because we've been working through this for months and months, is there any way that we could get the first reading in July, the second reading in August, and put this to bed so we can move on to other things?
I see no reason not to. I'm being a little cautious.
Okay,
But the sooner we can do it, probably the better for everybody.
I don't think it'll take Mr. Young that long to read through it. I don't think he needs 3 months.
We'll also need to discuss with St. Louis County and make sure that they're prepared to take on the additional inspections that'll be required. And so
Okay.
there are conversations that still need to be had before coming up with a definitive date, but that would all come before
And you-
council.
Could you have those conversations
Mhm.
prior to the council, the first reading, so that we know county's ready to go with a 30-day out day for
Yes.
them as well, so that they can be prepared?
And I guess if this goes to council with legislation prepared, you wouldn't necessarily have to have a go live date in the legislation, right? Because you would just be approving legislation that gives the city authority to implement this. And then you could have it at the department's discretion to start, or
Yes.
just so that you're not, like you said, if you put a hard date in there and then all of a sudden something comes up in the county and now we gotta bring it back and re-look at it.
Okay.
I guess to your point, even if we did put a hard date in it, once it reached council, we could
We can override it.
override it, we can
It's
make
a
an amendment and change the date.
2 months of reading, so.
Yeah, so I think if we, basically at this point tonight, if we vote to move it forward, it's now out of the Planning and Parks
You guys,
Committee
yeah.
and goes to council, and then legislation can be prepared, and you can talk to City Attorney Young to find out if there needs to be a go date in there. If not, then we just discuss and potentially approve the legislation to take effect, and then the department can implement it, or if we need it. The date piece, I guess, is something the city attorney will have to.
Yeah, it could be a
advise on.
matter of
Mhm.
occupants prior to such and such date are not required or something like that.
But I agree with Katie, if we can have
Mhm.
June and July, or was it July and August?
I said
July and August, then
July, the first reading.
that way it moves it forward.
Yeah, that gives Mr. Young.
So I know you guys have
6
put a
weeks
lot
to
of,
look
a lot
over
of work into this, and you've done a great job.
Massive amount of work. I was just gonna say that.
Yeah,
Great job, Melanie. It was, it had to be tough.
we've only made you go back like 40 times.
I mean, it's been a great discussion every time.
Well, with that being said, do we have any additional discussion on the
I
matter?
have a question.
Is, what, I just have to, on with Robert's rules, and because we're outside of public participation.
The chair's permission and no objection from any of the members, we can accommodate.
Sorry, I just had to ask, because we're only supposed to take comments from people outside of the committee during public participation at the beginning of the meeting, but that's why I wanted to ask him, but I'm okay with it if the rest of the committee's okay
That's
with
fine.
it. Sure. More than happy to let you speak. Go ahead.
Can you state your name and
Yeah.
So do you, I'm Cindy, I'm sorry. Did you say state my name?
Yeah, just your name and your ward.
your name?
So are the renters that are there now grandfathered in? Do I understand that right? Moving forward, anyone that's.
It's not really grandfathered in per se, it's just that after this becomes, after this is implemented, any new occupants after that date would require an occupancy inspection. So existing tenants at the time that this is implemented, no, we would not require an occupancy inspection for houses or apartments that are currently have tenants.
So renters would, the ones that are already there, I use the word grandfathered, but you know what I mean. So moving forward, if someone owned a home in Wildwood, if they wanted a renter to come in, they would have to go through all the inspections
Correct.
and have them done in 90 days, did you say?
So
Yes,
the inspection would pass and that person would have 90 days to have a tenant move in to their rental their rental unit. Or they would have to get another inspection after that. Most people renting units don't generally even apply for an inspection until after they've got a renter. And so it's not generally a hassle unless something falls through
But they would need to get it inspected with each new renter.
with each new renter, yeah.
Got you. I understand. Thank you.
Good, okay, thank you very much. Okay, so with that being said, does anybody else have any questions or comments or concerns? Okay, so we've got a motion on the floor with a second to approve this project to move to city council for legislation to be prepared and reviewed by the city attorney and go to council to look at. So with that being said, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? All right, well, congratulations.
Thank you. I'm having a moment.
I figured you
You're
would.
so easily excited.
Sounds like your kid going to college or something. All right, so that takes us to the next item on planning matters, which is the proposed project along Monarch Chesterfield Levee Trail, Archer Alexander, and the National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom. Director Runich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I'm going to do a brief introduction, and with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Keefe to kind of go through the memorandum itself. Many of you know that the Historic Preservation Commission has launched over the last few years a lot of initiatives and many successful ones at that. One of the items that came up recently was the Monarch Chesterfield Levee Trail, Howell Island, and all of the history that's associated with Gumbo Flats. Ms. Keefe was able to kind of link into a situation that occurred back in the 1860s that may be able to, first and foremost, give notoriety to the Underground Railroad and the Levee Trail, along with open up some grant opportunities to do a little bit more. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Keefe, Mr. Chair, if you're.
Yeah, absolutely.
Director Vunich. Mr. Chair, members of this committee, thank you for having me here this evening. I think Director Vunich did a nice job talking about the impetus for this project. But recently I was approached by local historian Doris Keevan-Franke, who is writing a book on a historical figure well-known nationally, Archer Alexander. And if you aren't aware of the story of Archer Alexander, I'll do a brief sketch. He is a freedom seeker from this area. And the reason he has national significance in our history is because his image is actually on the Emancipation Memorial in Lincoln Park in Washington, D.C. And the reason his image is on that memorial is because back in the 1860s, he was an enslaved person who overheard a Confederate plot to burn a bridge important to the Union Army of this area. Well, he was found out after he informed Union troops that this was going to occur. He was found out and had to escape for his life. And as part of his escape journey, he crossed the Missouri River at Howell's Ferry, along with 16 other men, or well, I think it was a total of 16 who were captured there actually. But he escaped again and made it to the home of William Greenleaf Eliot, who was a founder of Washington University. And there his former enslaver found him again, and he was tried at a military hearing because Missouri was under martial law at the time. And at that military hearing, he was granted his freedom. So shortly after that, President Lincoln was assassinated, or not assassinated, assassinated. Sorry, anyway. So shortly after that, President Lincoln was assassinated, and then this memorial project came to be. So that is the story of Archer Alexander.
Well, how did he live a good life or?
Well, he led a free life. He was granted his freedom.
Tragically happened to him.
He came back to this area. He was buried here in St. Peter's, and many of those sites are now nationally recognized under this National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom, which is run by the National Park Service. So Doris Keevan-Franke proposed that the city of Wildwood might take this on and not only designate that crossing site under that program, the National Underground Railroad, but also maybe do an interpretive project there as well. So I contacted the National Park Service and talked to their regional representative, who was very excited to help us work this out. And ultimately, we determined that the actual site of the crossing at Howell's Ferry is, outside of Wildwood boundaries, actually. It's in the city of Chesterfield. But the city of Wildwood has several parcels of ground right around Howell's Island, which could potentially be used to tell some of these stories. Well, in talking about this with some of our local collaborators, namely those at the Wildwood Historical Society, it was thought, well, actually, we have quite a lot of African-American history in that particular area of Wildwood. We have the historic Westland Acres community. We're currently doing a project about the Madison Valley area and the United States Colored Troops. We have the Tyler and Coleman plantations, which, those families were together the largest slaveholding families in the Wild Horse Creek Valley. So we have quite a bit of history that we could potentially tell there. And given that we could achieve national significance with some of these sites, that opens the door to some nice grant money that could potentially be utilized for this purpose. Plus, I will say, just as someone who's been looking at different pools of grant money and opportunities over the past few years, there's quite a few opportunities for telling some of these, more undertold stories about African-American history. So there's some other grant opportunities as well outside of the federal government in some of these programs. So at its last meeting, the Historic Preservation Commission did endorse this project and particularly mentioned, not only could we bring some national recognition to that trail and, of course, tell, some of these stories, but also it might be an opportunity to encourage Great Rivers Greenway to finish that proposed trail extension that would go through Babbler State Park and to the Merrimack Greenway. As you may be aware, the United States Colored Troops historic marker that we're currently planning is planned to be installed in Babbler State Park alongside that proposed trail extension. So we've already almost done one component of this project. Respectfully, we are requesting the endorsement of this committee tonight for an African American History Trail project in this area. And if you endorse it, it will go to City Council for approval. And at that point, I would move forward with several steps that I have outlined in your memorandum this evening. Namely, and the first and probably most important step is to approach all those potential partners and stakeholders that would be involved in such a trail project. And I've listed a whole bunch of them in your memorandum, but when we talk about that, we're talking about Union Baptist Church, the Westland Acres community, Great Rivers Greenway, the City of Chesterfield and their Historic Landmark and Preservation Committee, Babbler State Park, who's already involved with our historic marker there. The National Park Service is already involved and they're enthusiastic about this broader mission as well. In fact, they've been connecting me to other programs under their umbrella so that to connect all these different pieces of history together for this trail. The Wildwood Historical Society is very interested in it. And then, of course, with House Island being there, we might involve the Missouri Department of Conservation. And certainly what I've read in numerous grant descriptions is that a youth engagement component of this would also be a powerful and make our project a more preferred project under their criteria. And thankfully, the Historic Preservation Commission will have 2 new youth members as of next meeting. So we have lots of help. We have enthusiasm from the National Park Service. We have Doris Keevan Frankie writing up proposals and helping us with the designation process. We've already contracted with Ellen Reichert, local historian, to help us with the United States Colored Troops history and the daily life of enslaved persons, and also the Coleman and Tyler history as well. In your memorandum, I've outlined the different designation programs we could propose, the different sites that could potentially be designated. And the department has already put together a spreadsheet of all the potential grant programs and deadlines that we could tap for this. It will be a longer project. It's certainly not going to happen tomorrow. But we are excited about it and hope you will be too.
Thank you very much, Ms. Keith. That was really great. Thank you for all the information. Councilmember Rambo?
Yeah, Robin is our tenacious queen of grants. And I love that we're getting a little bit of momentum and getting critical mass on something that distinguishes us. And over the coming years, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but over the coming years, it will make us a bit more of a destination, at least a regional destination. I think it's a great thing. And so I wanted to motion that we move forward with this.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to move it forward.
I want to second it, but I also just want to make comment.
Yeah, so we've got a motion and a second, which will then take us into discussion. One quick thing I just wanted to, before we go into discussion, clarify to make sure that I understand. So with this going to council, I can already see the conversation that's gonna, I think it's an amazing idea and I think it's an awesome project. But like, obviously looking at grants, there's gonna be costs involved, there's gonna be all these different things. And I know, I can just see council wanting to know a lot of those details before they approve something. Is this, and Director Vudish, maybe you have the answer on this, but to where this committee could approve you guys to move forward in investigating all of these things and looking into these grants and all that stuff to then figure out like what all's involved or what the potential cost to the city would be if we didn't get a grant, or what grants have been applied. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out all those different things to where if it goes to council, council's basically saying we approve to get it done, or, because I just think if there's a lot of unknowns.
We are not asking for your endorsement for a full finished project tonight. We're asking for your endorsement for us to move forward, pursue these grant opportunities. But with every grant opportunity, anytime we're going to be requesting funding for any portion of this project, of course, we're going to be coming back to you, coming back to council.
I was just wondering if
so-
this process would go back and forth between us and you. And then once we had some more details associated with it, then it would go to council, or is this going straight to council now?
Both. So from the perspective of the department, we want the city council via the committee to understand where we're going to be spending our resources in terms of personnel, time, et cetera.
Got it.
But as we get more into the project, what we'll be doing is working through the Historic Preservation Commission in this committee as we develop those things to seek your direction. And ultimately, if there is a grant and there's a matching requirement, an endorsement.
Okay, Councilor Gadwell?
This is a fantastic idea to have this kind of history pulled together, and you have been, like Dr. Rambo said, the go-getter for grants extraordinaire. So I'm in full support of us moving forward with this. One thing I might request is that in the document you prepared for us, maybe start with an initial overview of, or a goal kind of statement or a couple of sentences as to what the long-term goal is for this project.
And
So
the
that
vision, yeah.
everybody at council understands that this is step one in trying to coalesce around this particular endeavor. And we will have many steps to follow to be able to get, I'm sorry, I'm shivering right now. It's cold in here, but if we can get that clearly outlined for the council as to this is what the ultimate goal is to have an interpretive center someplace, either at the La Cave trailhead or working with the Conservation Department somewhere on Hollow Island, have some interpretive components. Those are all gonna have to be budgeted going forward, but.
No, I think it's great. So we got a motion, we've got a second. Sounds like everybody's in support, so with, you like a question?
So is it to a trail, a memorial, a monument,
Yes.
all those things, okay.
So what, I suppose the vision right now, and I want to qualify this with right now, because we haven't had our partner and stakeholder meetings, and that means who knows what could come as we have those discussions with other entities. But the vision right now is to have an interpretive trail, which I would define as a series of interpretive signage along the Monarch Chesterfield Levee Trail. Now, again, you know, as we have more conversations, you know, potentially there could be some art or there could be some monuments, but right now I would say that the vision is interpretive signage.
How long would this trail be, do you know?
Well, the Monarch Chesterfield Levee Trail is 11 miles long.
Is the trail already built? We don't have to.
Oh, we're not building a trail.
Oh, so
We're just
talking about-
installing signage along it.
Oh,
Yes, yes. No, the trail's already there.
okay.
There is an extension to that trail that's proposed but has not been built. We're hoping that this might be, you know, an opportunity to make it go in a certain direction, maybe get built. But right now we're talking about signage along a trail that already exists.
Great. Anybody else? Councilor
One
Rambo?
comment. Yeah, my very favorite ex-council person who shall remain nameless texted me and said that we need to ensure that the African American community is intimately involved, and I think they are through the Historical Society anyway, but I wanted to make that.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
great.
We will reach out to Union Baptist Church in particular, but certainly everyone we've been engaging with, even around the United States Colored Troops Historic Marker, will reach out to and.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, with that being said, we'll take a vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Awesome, great. Thank you
Thank you.
very much for that and best of
Thank
luck
you,
in
Robin.
gathering the information.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yeah.
would you like a vest? We have some vests in the back here from.
No, it's just me and my silly. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. Okay, that takes us to the last time on our planning matters, which is the Carr Creek restoration effort. Director Vunich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, Mr. Newberry and I met with two representatives of Great Rivers Greenway at their headquarters recently. And we were there to talk about a number of items relating to the Western Greenway and their trail system, new signage, et cetera. The new signage has been before the committee previously, and you all had an opportunity to review it. One of the items that was discussed recently was a segment of Carr Creek that is creating an issue on property owned by Great Rivers Greenway and now threatening a portion of the Hamilton Carr Trail. And so tonight, what the department is requesting is authorization from the committee not to engage in any financial component with this, but to work with Great Rivers Greenway and see where we may be able to assist in protecting the city's trail, the Hamilton Carr Trail, that leads from all intents and purposes, Rockwoods Reservation to the Merrimack River. They are not asking for any financial commitment at this stage. We are in the preliminary stages of our discussion, but the department wanted to at least identify it and get any feedback from the committee. If the committee is not interested, certainly that would be the response I would provide. I think we're at an early enough stage just to kind of explore what we could do to help, and if there is anything that Great Rivers Greenway can do to assist us. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have a Councilman Rambo?
You mentioned one attractive component might be to enhance our trailhead. Can you kind of point out what we're doing, what we're talking about here?
All of the improvements to date that link existing trails, the Hamilton Carr Trail to the Al Foster Glencoe Trailhead are on the south end of Glencoe City Park. The thought is maybe doing something through here. We have a paper street. This is all property, all of these properties are owned by Great Rivers Greenway through a donation. Here's the existing trail, kind of like tree cover. But the thought is when we talked, Mr. Newberry and I, with the representatives from Great Rivers Greenway, they thought it was a nice idea and certainly could be incorporated into a project.
That we would fund or that they would fund, or we work through that,
Well,
or?
I always ask them to fund. They have deeper pockets.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, that's a nice complex down there, and anything we can do to make it nicer is just,
Well patronized too, I mean, very well utilized.
yeah, it's just great. It's known.
They're coming to us to engage in the conversation and hopefully then we can get them to pay for it.
And if that conversation leads to some participation financially, obviously you'll be the first to know.
All right, with that being said, do we have a motion on the floor to send this forward or let the department explore it further? Councilmember Rottenberg, second by Councilmember Rambo. Any more discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. There you go. Thank you very much. That is the end of, actually it takes us to the department, the recent development trends to the city of Wildwood. Does anybody have any questions or comments related? Councilmember Rottenberg?
Just real briefly, Director Vunich, what was the final disposition, refresh my memory if you would please, of the cell tower that Ameren had proposed for out the western part of the city?
The Planning and Zoning Commission was about to complete its recommendation, which was favorable after some major modifications to the proposal. Then Ameren, Missouri contacted the department and said that they were withdrawing the application. They were no longer looking for the tower at that particular site.
That's the one on T?
Yeah.
Really? Any idea why?
No, Mr. Lee had theorized that there had been a financial reporting agency that had given Ameren, Missouri a pretty poor rating, and their stock dropped pretty substantially, and they may have been retracting for a bit, but at this stage, there is no tower application before the Planning and Zoning Commission. It withdrew it from its agenda to ensure that there would be no questions.
Is that ever given the reasoning why, what the impetus behind them even wanting to build that?
They are going to a wireless reporting system, both from their meters as well as their system. They identified during the hearing that with those towers, they can basically track outages quicker and also down lines. And so everything's moving toward a wireless connectivity.
I see.
And Chair, I've got, thank you, Director Manchep.
Yeah.
One other question.
Sure, go ahead.
So earlier in the evening, we were talking about the reoccupancy program and how it applies primarily to rental properties. And I've had a related issue is I've had several homeowners associations come to me and ask what they can do to legally restrict the number of homes that can be purchased and being used for rentals within their particular subdivisions. And I'm not quite sure how to answer that question. If you would guidance on that.
Mr. Lee, Mr. Young, and the department have had conversations. The best protection a homeowners association can have is to introduce something into their indentures, either not necessarily prohibiting them, but limiting them to a certain percentage or number of the overall units within the subdivision. And the thought was maybe having Mr. Young to some general text or kind of catch-all that could be then submitted to the homeowners associations and their leadership and attorney so as it could be introduced. Managing your indentures and creating that protection is the best way to address it.
How would we go about then getting Mr. Young to forward that text to us?
Mr. Lee is and certainly address that better than I.
I can address this. Thank you. With the chair's permission, of course.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In this case, there are some questions on this matter just because typically we do not want to give any HOAs advice on how to enforce or enact items on within their indentures. That being said, what we could have is maybe something that's a little bit more generalized, posted on the city website, and then if someone were to copy and paste that information, it's public information. So that would be how we'd have to go about it, but I can talk with the city attorney, Mr. Bunich and I can, and we can get back to you at the next meeting.
Very good.
Because I would imagine that HOA would probably want to talk to an attorney themselves prior to doing anything.
Yes. And Mr. Bunich can expand on this as well, but if there's a change to their indentures, that's going to need to go through the city anyways, and typically we're going to require an attorney to sign off on that.
I've got several HOAs within Ward 3 that are all in the process of updating their indentures because they haven't been updated for quite some time. And, they're wondering, what they can do and what they can't do regarding the subject of rentals. So any information would be helpful.
And if you all want to get the leadership of those subdivisions, the HOAs together and meet here at City Hall, we could certainly give them some insights. The reason I think you're seeing a spate of these is that a lot of the subdivisions had a 30-year timeframe associated with them. And I think we're getting kind of close to them. The reason I mentioned, I think Mr. Young can do something is years ago, we did this for the large lot single family subdivisions. We were getting a lot of requests for information on how to strengthen their roadway maintenance association and in many instances create them. So our city attorney basically came up with a kind of a template and we did a lot of disclaimers about it. It's a starting point. Obviously you want input from your residents and your own attorney, but I think it's a service we should provide, at least give them the insights that we have from reading indentures almost every day.
So not to delay the adjournment of this committee by too long, but what would be the appropriate next step?
I think Mr. Lee identified it, and he'll talk with Mr. Young, and we'll see what we can do. And then if you like, we can have this on the June agenda.
Sure.
It's probably
Yeah, that'd
worth
be a-
doing, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That'd be a good idea because
Make sure we're able
I
to
ran into the
provide.
same thing with some subdivisions,
Direction.
HOA.
Probably matter to all,
Meeting.
let's face it, right? I mean,
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay. All right, that's the end of planning matters, which takes us into park matters. We have 6 items ready for consideration, and we'll start with number 1. Anniversary park improvements, parking lot resurfacing bids, Director Bunich.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, as you may recall, during the first months of 2024, the department presented a proposal to resurface the parking lot drive aisle areas at Anniversary Park. Anniversary Park is one of our oldest facilities. It was named after our 10-year anniversary, so approaching 20 years. Obviously, as you know, from being part of this committee, particularly some of the members that have been here now for several years, we've made improvements in Anniversary Park over the course of time. But one of the improvements we haven't has been the parking lot and drive aisle areas. They held up pretty well in their initial installation. The department brought one bid at the time. It was from one of our maintenance contractors that's under contract for the entirety of the year. We do those 11 or so maintenance contracts at the start of each year. The committee requested additional bids. We did contact 2 additional contractors. We only received 1 bid. That bid was from Ford Asphalt, which was approximately $5,000 less than the original bid. The department has 3 options for you. Certainly, we can continue to try to find that 3rd bid. If it's noted in the select from one of the 2 bids, or we could delay this project till 2025 and make it part of the budgeting process that's about to begin. You don't realize it in about 3 to 4 months.
The total bid is for 2,400.
Actually, no, that is 32,000.
Oh, I'm sorry.
$32,000.
Sorry, 32,000. And this is in the budget for this year?
We have it. It was probably, I would have been more enthusiastic a few months ago, but we've had, we're going to be spending a great deal of money down at John L. McKay Memorial Trailhead because we had that last storm a couple of weeks ago. It inundated Centaur Road in the park with mud. I mean, mud probably 24 to 30 inches thick. And cleaning it up, we had to remove some of the rocks, some of the improvements. So we're kind of, weather's thrown us a fit this year. We're just cutting grass, too.
Councilmember Dodwell?
Anniversary Park is in Ward 4. I also know there's a restaurant that is just to the east of that park that also uses the road off of Clayton to get into their parking lot, and many of their visitors to that establishment use the parking lot that the city has put in place. I don't want to curtail any business profitability, but do we need to entertain with them a cost share of some sort or maintenance share?
We could certainly reach back out and ask them. Again, I don't think a month's delay will either make this project less successful or more successful or less expensive, more expensive. So if you'd like, we could postpone and then I could reach out not only to the restaurant, but to the childcare facility.
Yes.
Because everybody uses it.
Both of them use it.
Heavily use it.
Mhm.
And then get back to you after that.
Hopefully oil prices come down in the meantime. Councilmember Rottenberg?
Yeah, Director Bonich, you mentioned some unexpected costs associated with the maintenance of the McKay Trailhead. So with those unexpected costs, how does that impact your overall budget if we were to proceed with the resurfacing of the Anniversary Park parking lot?
As you know, we have about $350,000 set aside for park trail maintenance for 2024. As you can see, we're running a little under budget, but again, we are seeing increases in the cost of lawn maintenance because the grass is growing so much faster. We are doing more frequent cuts in certain parts where we have high activity area. This will be, this asphalt resurfacing will be a major expense. And as I say, it would have, if we were more in a position back in early in the year, we probably could have curtailed some of the things we're planning now. But we're kind of into those planning stages now that we're almost into June. So like I said, I'd like to talk to our partners that use the facility, see if they'd be willing to share some of the expense, bring that $32,000 down. If not, then I probably will come back in June and say, can we just do this as part of the overall budgeting in 2025?
So, do you need us to do anything? Oh, Councilmember Dodwell?
I just want to add to the fact that it took us 20 years to get a restroom at that facility. As the representative for that particular area, I do not want to wait another 20 years to get the parking lot fixed. So if we can find money this year to get that done and over with, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly.
Councilmember Rambo?
Yeah, that's more than fair. And there was some concern about we're maybe robbing some of the maintenance dollars from the parks budget to do the Old State Road Improvement Project that's $328,000 or something like that. This was one of the projects that I heard mentioned as getting pulled off the table, and that asphalt is atrocious. I mean, doesn't matter whose ward it's in, it's time to fix it. And so I think it behooves us to try to make it a priority. It's not that much if you're looking at a $350,000 Old State Road improvement. So whatever, I don't know what I can do to suggest that the committee move this forward quickly, but I think it's appropriate to do that. So what would be my motion if I?
Does this, well, let me ask you this then, does this need to go to council then, right, if we move it forward? So can we just, in an effort to expedite it, can we just say, can we vote to approve it to move forward with you talking to the other owners in the meantime to see if they would be willing to participate? And if so, you can adjust the legislation to reflect that, and if not, then just put it for the 32,000.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Councilmember Rodberg?
Yeah, so just thinking out loud here with the question, what incentive would the nearby businesses have to contribute to the resurfacing of that parking lot if they already have the ability of some of their customers to park there? What would be their incentive?
Well, there is cross-access between the properties that was required of the Elegant Child Daycare Center when they first were approved for construction. And we included that as part of our development of the Anniversary Park. There's not necessarily a cross-parking agreement. It's just shared parking and it's more informal. I would argue with them that we're creating an improved access that adds value to their property and provides for safe ingress and egress. And so that would be my pitch. It's a tough sell because we're asking them to spend money on something that, as you say, they may not feel they are.
You couldn't put a sign there that said for parking.
Yeah, we actually have talked about that in years past, but for the most part, it seems to self-regulated. So that when we have a lot of the kids there after school and in the early mornings, that we don't seem to have that crunch. So, but certainly between now and the council meeting on June 10th, I can certainly reach out to both of the owners and just ask them and then have an update for you at that meeting.
I just think our taxpayers need to know that we are making every effort to keep our costs in line wherever possible, and to reach out to a partner that shares that same space for their businesses at various times. Granted, it's in the evening after the park probably is closed, but they do have access into their facility through those roadways and the ability to share it. So that's all I'm asking.
Councilmember Krantz.
So were you, Rob, you said something at Old State about were you suggesting you take the money that they allocated for Old State or we talked about? I wasn't.
Not at all. I was saying that
Okay.
we had an unexpected, significant unanticipated expense to do the the high friction surfaces on Old State. And we have to get the money from somewhere and we're taking it from all over the budget just to make it happen. I wasn't suggesting otherwise.
Well, I mean, I think when you go to Old State, my opinion, you could start from Bluffview and go down, what was that, 167? And then the rest of the money may be available for the, parking lot. I'm just trying to say, we could work something out there if we needed the money. I think that lower part of Old State was the more difficult, the unsafe skid.
Yeah, there were actually three and I looked at it and it's kind of hard to, I mean, where do you quit? And it seems like there's something to be said for one and done, pay the money and then the county takes over the maintenance forever. And so it remains low skid. That one corner was the place I saw because it was 75 grand, but there's a significant amount of accidents there as well. So there's not a lot of blood to squeeze out of that turnip.
And the department's not asking for that. That's a decision
Right.
that's been made. All I'm saying is I think maybe let's talk to the partners. We've got a better bid. I'll actually try to get that third bidder. It was Kelp Contracting that we were waiting on. I'll try to get that one. We may even get a better bid. So
So,
we've got 2 weeks to make. something
so
happen.
Director Finish then, I guess the action, because obviously we're willing to move this forward in some capacity, so would you rather us authorize you to talk to the partners and then prepare legislation to go to council at this time, or do you want us to have you talk to the partners and come back to us in June?
I'd like to proceed as Ms. Dodwell has suggested, and what would happen on the June 10th meeting is that this would be a work session for action. And then I'd have legislation prepared at that time under that favorable, I can't remember the exact title.
Yeah.
Whatever the terms, whatever the amount is at that time. Okay, yeah, does somebody make a motion for that? Councilmember Dodwell? Give a second, Councilmember Rottenberg. Any discussion further on the motion? Councilmember Rambo?
We can look at this as facilitating those businesses in that area. And so I don't have too much heartburn if they don't.
If they say no,
kick in.
then
I wouldn't
I
like to
just-
put up a sign or anything like that says
No.
no
Yeah.
cut through.
Some adversarial.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it needs to stay a positive relationship. It's just, I think we would be remiss in not reaching
follow,
out to
right.
them. And it gives them the opportunity to show their commitment to the city too.
Sure. Okay, Councilmember Rottenberg.
But I guess along the lines of a sign, we could put up a positive sign, something about the partnership between the city and those businesses.
Yeah.
Or something along.
For sure. We can talk to them about that.
Yeah.
And the mayor has his business there, doesn't he? Like real close, isn't?
It's, I think in the,
Across the street.
Across the
Yeah.
street.
the other corner across the street from it, yeah.
I think he should pay for
Yeah.
In return, we'll put his picture up.
it. It's actually an override to his business.
I think
Uh,
we should put a
Mr. Chair, I'll let
thank you.
you suggest.
Yeah, I'll text him later. All right, so we've got a motion on the floor with a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? Awesome.
I like the idea of it. Thank you sign. Thank you for your partnership, Elegant Child.
Yeah, refinish the partnership
Yeah.
from.
Just a sign is.
We could do something on the website, the social media news, just making it positive for everyone.
Sure. Great idea. All right, next item on the agenda is Portner Park, the planning process and the selection of the task
Partner,
force.
Mr. Delaney.
That was well deserved. I know he's got a affinity.
I'm yeah.
butchering his family's
I
name.
gave up, but I just.
It's German, so the second vowel is always allowed.
Yeah, I took German. So I'm fully aware. I just read it.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, this is a topic that many of you are familiar with. We had talked about farming a advisory group that would consist of the two Ward 6 council persons and then representatives from the general vicinity. It kind of stalled out, and so with the new committee and a new mayor, I thought it'd be appropriate to bring it back. Really, what we're asking the committee to do is to assist with their other ward representatives and pick a representative from either from Hinkin Valley Estates and Estates at Deer Hollow subdivisions, yes. Two at-large members from Ward 6, those be residents or property owners, and then two at-large residents from the other 7 wards. It would be a total size of the advisory group of 7. And so again, I'm just reintroducing it, and maybe if you all can kind of work together and come up with the other 5 members, we'll be in good shape and we'll get this started.
Councilmember Rambo.
So I will volunteer to go knock on a few neighbors' doors right there surrounding Furtner Park and see if I can get some interest in volunteering. I need a little bit more clarity maybe on what the time commitment is gonna be, and it's impossible for you to say, but I would like to be able to tell them, you know, something. If you can do that for me, I'll do that. I'll take on that task and get it done in a week or so. I don't know about the subdivisions. It would be good to have the HOA information, and maybe I can make some calls there, but
I can forward the trustee information I have for the 2 subdivisions and can work from there if you'd like. And then certainly I can give you some ideas of what we think the number of meetings and the time frame associated with.
okay. And you might include the contact for the person that's buying that Hankin Hills.
And how many additional ward members do you need?
Dr. Rambo and Colonel Jaxie addressed the representatives from the 2 surrounding subdivisions and the at-large members from Ward 6. Really, the other council members just need to pick two residents from the other 7 wards.
2 from each ward?
No, just
No,
2.
total.
2 total.
Does anybody else on the committee representing the other wards have any suggestions on who that might be? Councilmember Hotman?
I would have a suggestion of somebody that lives up the street from me who was on the redistricting committee and has an interest in parks and outdoor activities.
Okay, so Director Vunish, would you like any of the members on the committee that have suggestions of alternative members from the other wards to submit those to the department?
Sure.
Consideration.
If you wouldn't mind, and then we can collect any of the names and then compare them to Miranda. And kind of go from there.
I'll do that, and I know that the gentleman I have in mind, Councilmember Ryan also knows this gentleman, and so she would speak favorably of him as well.
Great, and I'll reach out to my counterparts in Ward 1, and because that's the close other ward, and we'll we'll get something.
So I gotta find two residents, maybe, okay, I'll talk to Nathan.
Well, it's 2 from all the wards besides
Combined.
so not 2 per ward.
2 spread out over 7 wards.
Okay.
Might
Do you
only
have any
one.
candidates
Sounds
that
like
you
we
would,
found one.
if you have any candidates that you and Nathan think that would be appropriate, you want to submit, feel free to.
But there's 2 at large. You're looking for 2 from Ward 7, aren't you?
No,
No.
from all the other wards. So 2 from Ward 6, 2 from the neighboring,
2 from
Subdivisions.
2 from neighboring
Oh, okay.
subdivisions,
2 at large.
6, and
I
then
see.
6 large.
So.
And one of the
okay.
General
at-large probably
I
ought to be.
I don't have to worry about it then.
Any of the other wards.
Okay, so Rob's gonna get somebody else from
7
Ward
wards,
1.
okay, I see.
I'll do my best, yeah.
Okay, someone, and you've got someone, Scott, from.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's getting late.
All right, well, very good. So then, you don't need us to take any action, and it's just more of what we agreed to do. So everybody clear to go? Councilman Robert?
If I can ask for one more bit of clarification, then the committee that these people will serve on, what will be their responsibility?
We are going to ask the advisory group to review the information we have on the physical characteristics, the deed restrictions from the CEOs who donated the property to the city. And then, for the most part, help us understand how to design the park and what should be in the park.
Okay.
And that would form the concept plan that would be developed. And with the concept plan in hand, that would come to committee and then city council. From there, we would then start programming it in as part of our strategic plan and 5-year capital improvement.
Do you have something that could be sent to?
That's what I was just gonna say. Can you send something to all the committee members, just briefly explaining what the,
That's what
Thank
I
you.
was asking. I intended to ask.
yeah, that way everybody can just present that or email that to anybody that might be
When you-
interested.
When you did the city park project, you put together a 1-pager descriptor for potential members of that and.
That was a great group.
Yeah, it was.
Awesome.
So Chair, one
Yes.
last question. if you
Yeah,
don't
go
mind.
ahead.
So once you have the names for the people that have been recommended for this committee, then do those nominations then have to be confirmed by the council, or how would that work?
My understanding is that council would submit those names and the mayor would select.
Okay,
But you'll all see the collective names and then can discuss them amongst yourselves and then make recommendations to the.
Awesome. Thank you very much. If you have any questions about the process, reach out to the department in the process. In the meantime,
I'll get you some information you've requested here as soon as I can.
perfect, thank you.
next on the agenda is a development agreement for Hardport area and Town Center. Director Bunich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, as you know, the city council agreed to relocate the pickleball courts from Community Park to the Town Center area. The pickleball courts are to be part of a development that Mr. Greenberg and Mr. Cohn are proposing and have underway at the intersection of Taylor Road and Main Street. One of the components of the pickleball courts is that the property currently isn't owned by the city and eventually will be owned by the city through a donation from the developers. Tonight, the department is presenting to you 7 items that it believes need to be part of the development agreement to ensure that the property is donated to the city and the components of the property from the perspective of access, stormwater management, et cetera, in favor of the community. So tonight, the department basically has identified those 7 items. Those 7 items will anticipate the donation of the 2+ acre property to the city. And that could almost happen immediately now that it is not necessary for the collateral associated with the loan. Second, the department would want to ensure that the cost associated with the design and engineering are not all borne by the city. That would be a component of the developer. We have the uncoupled, and we are working with Stock and Associates outside the development of the other 2 components of the project. Again, the cost, in the opinion of the department, should be borne by the developer, not the city. Thirdly, the city would pay all costs for the construction of the pickleball courts as we had anticipated in Community Park that would carry over here. Additionally, the ancillary improvements, as you can see, there's a stormwater management facility, there's some lighting, there's other improvements that are associated with that. They're universal to the overall project. Those would be carried out by the developer as well. The access, that's a key component since the property does have frontage onto Taylor Road, but as you can see, the plan shows access coming from the interior drive out into Dearborg's Town Center. You need to ensure that we have permanent and perpetual access to the property and the access that's been chosen. The agreement would address any insurance and indemnification of the parties relative to roles and responsibilities. And the development agreement would allow the developer to seek tax benefits from the donation to the public entity and therefore receive some benefit from all of these activities. So those are the 7 items the department is requesting the endorsement from the committee tonight so that the development agreement can proceed to city council for the June meeting and then be incorporated into a document that the city attorney is working on. Thank you.
Any questions? Councilor Rambo?
I'm questioning everything tonight. Yeah, can we go back to calling it hard surface courts instead of pickleball? And are we clear, does the design doesn't have to start over, right? I mean, we're using the same folks that did the community park and so they can use their,
We took the design that was endorsed and approved by the committee and then ultimately city council and carried it over here and set it down on the property. And what you see around it is part and parcel to that, and also the overall development project itself.
okay, so we're gonna be able to do a couple half court and with
Four
tennis.
pickleball courts, a tennis court that's convertible to 2 half-court basketball areas.
Awesome.
Okay, yeah.
And then, oh, this is a nit, but if pickleball dies out like racquetball did and so on and so forth, it may or may not, but it would behoove us to kind of future-proof this site to be able to add another tennis court back in or something like that. You know, in lieu of the pickleball courts. And so it's really just a sizing question more than anything else.
And the beauty of all of this is it's hard surface, and really what creates the courts is the striping.
Striping, yeah.
The striping, we just have to restripe it.
So
As long as it's big, as long as it's physically, the slab is big enough for
concept,
that.
as was directed by this
Yeah.
committee, is make sure that it's pickleball worthy, but also if we need to convert it, we have the maximum amount of hard surface as possible.
I'll only ask that about 8 more times.
Councilmember Rockner.
Katie, are you on play pickleball? The tennis court that can be converted into 2 half basketball courts. How do we manage that process?
That's a very good question, and it's one that we're still doing some research. We have our park superintendent and recreational specialist. I've kind of charged them with some assistance in that, how other cities do it. The one I see most often is Town and Country, and obviously Ms. Ripito used to be their planning director, so I'm gonna ask her to help us there if she knows anybody at Town and Country. They have those large tennis court areas right there by Interstate 6440. And they seem to do it on an honor system, but we'll see. That's a real challenge, and we have some time to do it, but we're not gonna delay, because we don't want people arguing at the facility.
If you put up the hoops and paint the keys, then all you have to do is, if you're there playing basketball, then you don't get to play tennis, right?
The reservation system, things like that. We've heard in some instances with pickleball, you just put these hangers and then people put their pickleball court there and they're next in line when people leave, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of ways to get to it. I just don't know which one is the best right now.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
You need a motion or something?
Yeah. Okay, so the department's looking for a motion to move forward with crafting the agreement based on the guideline you put there. Okay, so we have a motion for that? Councilman Rottenberg,
Yes.
second by Councilman Preston. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, great. That takes us next to the Village Green, update on the project's progress, Director Vunich.
It's truly.
In all the speaking today.
Yeah, well, it truly is just an update. If there's any questions, the department, Ms. Keefe, Ms. Ripito, and I'd be glad to answer them.
Does anybody have any questions?
I like the bombshell sign. You guys see the bombshell sign? So,
I saw that.
yeah.
I saw that over there. I was laughing the other day, or yesterday when I was here, so. Okay, well, if we don't have any additional questions.
If I had.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thing, I think Ms. Ripito and I were talking, almost looks like one of those signs you see at a nuclear site.
Exactly. That's what I thought.
Maybe it'll stop trespass.
I was up for the economic development meeting last night. I saw that. I'm like, man, what's going on? Direct, city administrator Lee, I was actually gonna reach out to him, like the situation with the septic systems back down the road over there.
We're installing them all over.
Well, problem. I was like, man, we got toxic signage going on. All right, so if no other questions on that, we'll just move forward from there. And that takes us to the last two items on park matters, which is the Department, the Wildwood Recreation Programming update and facility reservations, event reservations, and ongoing long-term maintenance. Does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns related to anything in those areas? Okay. Thank you very much. That takes us from there. We don't have an executive session tonight. Not ready for action. Got a couple items on there. No other matters for consideration, which brings us to our next meeting, which is on Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. So mark your calendars and does anybody have any miscellaneous?
On the
Councilmember
topic
Dowd.
of June 18th, I will be in Grand Tetons National Park. I will not be here, so
You're
sorry.
gonna be having more fun than us.
You probably call in by way of Zoom.
Councilmember Rottenberg will provide you with a
Wireless.
Wi-Fi hotspot.
Yeah, you can give me a
You can take his
hotspot.
phone.
Yeah.
Councilmember Rottenberg.
Just one last question, going back to the topic that we were talking about regarding rentals and including information on rentals into subdivision indentures. And I guess this question is for the city administrator. How soon do you think it would be before you could get back to us with some information based on your conversations with the city attorney that we could get out to some of the subdivisions? Because I know some of them are going through their indentures right now. They're hiring attorneys to do reviews of the indentures, so there's 1,000 things on your plate, but time is sort of the essence with this particular issue.
I would say that it'd be ready to come back if able in general to at the June meeting. But in this case, just a quick notifier is that we would post general language as a template. That being said, individuals, they would still be encouraged to hire their own legal attorneys and to use it more as a uniformity item. So everyone has the same language in their indentures, not necessarily us giving legal advice. That's the big separation here is if we start giving legal advice as a city, we become liable for any lawsuits that would stem from them. So we just got to be very careful with the way it's worded. And that's what we might have to just step delicately here.
Well, I wonder if anyone knows, when the subdivisions contact a particular attorney to review their indentures, would they be typically contacting an attorney that's got some experience with this sort of thing that might be able to to them already, the type of language they might include?
The city actually does have a grouping of the city attorney put together a listing of about 4 different firms that specialize in more so HOA subdivision matters and putting together indentures. So that could be a good resource. If someone would like to reach out to us, we'd be more than happy to give them that information. That being said, too, we could have something put together, but it would just need to be clearly stated that this is purely for information and the individuals wouldn't want to just copy and paste it into their indentures.
Can you send us that list
Yeah, I
of
was just gonna
attorneys
say.
that specialize in that sort of thing?
Most definitely.
Okay, thank you.
I'll take a copy too.
Yeah, just send it to the whole council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyone could use it in any ward that needs it. Awesome. Well, that brings us to closing remarks. Anybody else have anything?
Motion to
Councilmember
adjourn?
Just
Grant?
quick, at the June meeting, Natalie McKay from Unlimited Play, I think we'll have the concept plan.
Oh, good.
And results, preliminary results of the audit available, so we are still working on that.
Awesome. Well, look forward to that. Closing remarks, I just want to say welcome to the new members of the committee. Thank you for being here. Your election to council and you're joining the committee. And then thank you to all of you for your continued faith and is your fearless chair. And just let the record reflect that it is 8:22 and we have once again
I was
had
gonna
another
say,
consecutive meeting. that's
actually
finished
8:23.
on or before
On
time
time.
limit.
Yeah.
I intend to make that a continuing deal, so I appreciate all your help with that,
I
guys.
got a stopwatch on you.
I thought Council Rottenberg was just asking some more questions, just to kind of push us over.
I didn't realize we still had that's left.
With no further questions or anything, I'll take a motion for adjournment. Councilmember Kranz, seconded by Councilmember Rottenberg. No discussion on the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, well, thank you very much, guys. Have a great
Yeah.
evening and rest of the
Take
week.
some